Hello everyone.
Καλώς ήρθατε. Welcome.
Hello. Bonjour à tous.
Goedemorgen iedereen.
Hello everyone.
Guten Morgen. Dobro jutro svima.
Good morning, everyone.
Bonjour. Ça va? Good morning to everyone.
Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs.
We are really excited to meet all of you and talk about problems that are happening right now in Europe.
There's been a rising tendency of xenophobia in Germany. But honestly, we don't understand this.
Because even though there are a lot of different cultures and religions at our school, we don't really have this yet because we don't see them as different ethnics because especially our school, the LLG, is one of the oldest and most traditional schools in Germany, and that's what really makes our city great, the huge diversity of culture.
We wish to exchange our experience, integrate and build new friendship despite the language and distance barriers separating us. Hopefully we will meet again soon, so let's try to make our relations last.
Our future will be built by motivated, creative, purposeful and intelligent people which will take care of peace and development of not only Europe but the whole world. Together we can do big things, and I suppose that this event is a really great start for every one of us.
Edri são zironi, Janam, edri são zironi, edri são zironi, na Gheorghi Duma, edri são zironi, na Gheorghi Duma. Katushami vărviș, Gheorghi, katushami vărviș, katushami vărviș, na bojno topole, katushami vărviș, na bojno topole.
Former Minister of Education and Culture in Spain. I was for 4 years a member of the cabinet. I am a professor of political science in the Spanish university, and I've been here for a number of years. I work in the committee, which is really one of the top in terms of how much it affects to the development of our economics, of our industry, services, research, innovation, and energy and climate change. This is the ITRE committee, this is the acronym, and its industry is all related to digital transformation, digital technologies, and so on, energy as well, and research and innovation. So you can see a huge portfolio which really has a daily impact in our present and in our future.
How the cooperation with the UK will look like after the Brexit?
The agreement that was reached the other day by Minister Davis from UK and Michel Barnier from the European Parliament, from the European Commission and institutions, and representing all the institutions, indeed, was that that will be a transition period. So they will leave the European Union in 2019, that's March 2019, but they will be linked to the end of 2020, to December 2020. During this time, they will not participate, they will keep the legislation that they have now as member of the European Union. So that legislation that was approved since they entered into the European Union and is still alive, is European legislation, to now when they leave, because they are now in Parliament, they are voting, they are participating in the Council, they have the officials in the Commission and so on and so forth. But starting in March 2019 till the end of 2020, they will keep all the legislation, they will keep linked to the European Union, but they cannot participate in the new legislation. The legislation in some matters that we decided without the participation of them, so they cannot participate in the Parliament, in the Council, and so on and so forth, in the co-legislation bodies. then they can, in some cases, to apply or not to apply on the one hand, but they cannot participate. On second, they have to pay the bill. And the bill, they will pay it 100% of what the Commission or what the European Union has asked for, which is calculated in about 45,000 million euros. And then to a specific thing that was very demanding, three. One is that if you, for example, any of you, you go to UK because you want to go to study to the university, because you want to go to work, and for all these things, apart from tourism and so, you will be, during the transition period, so this almost 2 years, you must be legally treated in the same manner that those that were there before the decision of Brexit. So there will not be any change for that. They can't do it till, one, they pass the transition period, so after 2020. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, the second of the last three I was mentioning is Irish border, North Ireland border, which was so very much controversial, and the European Union wanted, and the Irish Republic wanted to have, and we all supported that, to have and not to have a strong impact in the current situation, given the situation of North Ireland and the relationship, with the Republic of Ireland, the Irish Republic, and all these. I mean, till for the moment, that will be the same situation. It is in the case of Gibraltar. I mean, many of you probably are not familiar with that, but Gibraltar is in Spain. It is British colony. I mean, and it's part of the UK. And we have a very special relationship, you can imagine, because it is in the land of the Iberian Peninsula. And what they agreed is that Gibraltar will lift the European Union at the same time that all UK. And any special arrangement for Gibraltar, it is considered a bilateral arrangement. So it's something that must be negotiated and must be agreed exclusively by Spain and UK.
Taking into consideration the provocative statements from the Turkish president about an imminent Third World War, how will the EU react in order to prevent a possible conflict? Thank you.
Well, I hope that this is more a matter of propaganda and than other thing. No, I mean, it's not only a hope. I think this is a kind of big statement that in a disproportionate manner you do, either to gain support in your country or sometimes to deviate from national problems you have really there, and so on and so forth. No. But, yes, the European Union has to, temperate all these things, and if things rise in a situation in which any member of the European Union is affected because you have problems, related to any threat, then the European Union will act together in the case of problems that are real threats. But then I think the border problems with many neighbors we have, not only Turkey, but with many others linked to the former sphere, in some cases, of the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, or directly with Russia. And so are also important and in many aspects. And well, this is constant, need for pay attention and try to temperate this and but it is not only the European Union, it is the European Union in the context of the NATO, it is the European Union in context of other, regional, also organizations, no, in which the European Union can act.
I would like to ask you about the President of the United States, Donald Trump, who have made recently an aluminium and steel taxes on imports from the EU. What will the EU do to sanction back, or will we do anything about making taxes for American products?
Well, this is, in my view, an unnecessary problem that that was is emerging or has emerging for this position of the administration and the lead of the administration, the President of the United States of America, which is the last thing America need, the United States need, and Europe need. I mean, on the contrary, transatlantic relationships should be the guideline, not, against that, making more difficult the collaboration, the cooperation, and the trade between both sides of the Atlantic. This is something that it is in the opposite side that what we need. I hope that that will, still had a lot of thinking in the United States in order not this to happen, because this immediately is going to be answered by the European Union with this and this and that. And then if I said that the European Union represents an example and a project which is indispensable to tackle global problems, I also must say that in a different intensity, to have a very good and open transatlantic relationship is also absolutely necessary. Will make us both sides of the Atlantic, stronger. I mean, with all the differences, we also share the values of the democratic system and the freedoms and so on and so forth. So and how economy should work under the principles of freedom as well. And then with all the differences, because then we have many differences in terms of social approach, social policies and so forth. But the last thing that we need is an escalate of more division, more separation, more states very far away one from each other. On the contrary, what we need is to be closer, to try to take advantage of all the synergies of both of our countries in Europe and the European Union then and the United States. This is exactly what we must push for. So I hope that before taking any decision, still, they can really give not the last thought, but many more before, be pushed, to have this impulse to take a decision in this field.
Is it possible to pursue economic development without endangering the planet? We have some answers in the terms of replacing or building new governmental buildings, in the future aspects of making 50% of governmental buildings these zero-net buildings. And for those of you who don't know what zero-net buildings are, it's a type of building which produces all the energy that it consumes, which it erases the risk of having energy go to waste. Another example, a real-life example of this, is a project which is going on in Karlskrona in Sweden, which is the city that I and my peers come from. The project is called Pottholmen, and its goal is in 2020 to have apartment buildings for civil people to live in, and the buildings are made of entirely renewable materials. And the main goal for these apartments are that the people who live in the buildings are going to be able to have a carpooling system, which makes them they're not going to own a car. So if they do need a car for transporting, they're going to lease it in this like common leasing group that the people who live there have. And since they are really near the train station and bus station, they're also going to have the possibilities to travel a lot by train and buses, which is in the future going to lead to that they have connections directly to Copenhagen Airport in Denmark from Karlskrona, which is going to take them all over the world.
Freedom of speech should be accepted, but we should know the limits. There are certain things that we can't say, so there should be punished those who say those words. And majority agreed yes.
I would like to ask, where do you draw the line between hate speech and free speech? It's a simple question.
Yeah, there is a very fine line between free speech and hate speech. I believe in a lot of countries already they have banned specific phrases. Example, in Germany, it is illegal to say that the Holocaust didn't happen because it obviously happened. So I think in terms of the line, I think it would have to, be very monumental. It would have to be very, it would have to be very serious too. It couldn't just be a random thing. I think it has to have consequences, and yeah.
EU itself is a culture. So not only do we have German culture, but we also have the European culture that we have created by our individual cultures. And this idea has not really been focused on. And therefore, we have a suggestion to promote this EU culture, to remember that we are a union consisting of different cultures, but gathered in one. And this is by, for example, creating a basic education system, where we all can learn, for example, about the history of the European Union and just generally more about this union that we are a part of, because we do not come here today to not only represent our own country, but we're also here to represent the European Union. And by creating this basic educational system, every country in the European Union would also have the same opportunities to do what they want.
This would be also a link to a more digitalized future. Digitalization would start from education in a more technical ed, as well as workshops and seminars for older people. We also have to promote our democratic values, our European values, skills and human rights, as this would have a main issue with the future of Europe. We also mentioned the liberalization of the EU's world trade policies in order for to encourage the participation of trade and translate more of a global human participation through tourism, education, and EU higher institutions.
Programs for public services and jobs which integrate migrants within society and link them to the host nation would be linked to education in the basic language if a common language nation isn't found, where they will be taught both practical cultural factors such as cooking, any culture of the host nation, and also education that will further their studies within their careers and whatnot. Our third point is that countries will agree to have an equal amount of migrants flowing towards their country in proportion to their size, population density, and economic situation. This will all be set from before, so countries will agree between themselves. The countries that refuse to take their share that they agreed upon will have to be, like any law that a country would decide not to obey, will face sanctions against them. Our fourth policy would be that a program that encourages host families within the host nations, which integrates the migrants in a more holistic way. Living with natives of that country would help the migrants actually integrate further within that culture and that country. Obviously, it would be on a completely voluntarily. So, and also migrants will be relocated according to their family size. So, families of migrants will not be broken up and relocated according to their houses. So houses will be found according to space. So if there's space for one and there's a singular migrant, that one migrant will go in that house with space for one. If there's a whole family of migrants and there's a house, for example, that has space for four, they will move to that house, but families will not be broken up.
First of all, we need to qualify people and prepare them better for work life. You spend a lot of time at work, and it cannot be that we spend like no time in school talking about which type of work you need to choose later. This needs to become a larger part of our school life, and it also needs to become a part in cooperation with teachers, with companies, as well as with professionals who know what they are talking about. Also, the challenge of digitalization needs to be a part from the very beginning in school life, preparing the people for the world of nowadays. The second group is the vocational training. First of all, everybody should have the right for a vocational training or work training, similar to the Ausbildungsgarantie in Austria. The idea behind this is, if you want to have a vocational training, if you want to have a work training, you get one. You get one by the state, and they show you where you can get one. This is working really good in Austria, and they're having excellent results with this since 2013.